What if almost everything you've been told about the Middle Ages is wrong? Not just a little wrong. Completely, historically, dinner party embarrassingly wrong. Tonight, we're not here to mock the past. We're here to quietly correct it. Because some of the most famous facts about medieval life, the ones repeated in movies, textbooks, and even by your clever uncle, are actually myths. Some invented centuries later. Some just lazy stereotypes. And before we start, if you enjoy learning what really happened, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Little Historical. It helps a tiny channel find its audience. Thank you. So here is the truth that history class never dared to whisper. The idea that medieval people believed the earth was flat is not just wrong. It is a lie crafted centuries later, polished by storytellers who wanted the Middle Ages to look foolish. Picture this. You are a sailor in the year 1300. The wind fills your lungs with salt. The horizon curves away from you like the gentle back of a sleeping giant. You watch the mast of a returning ship rise from the water before its hull appears. You do not need a professor to explain that. You see the curve every single evening when the sun sinks and the stars climb in a slow, deliberate arc. The ancients knew. The Greeks had measured the earth's circumference with nothing more than sticks, shadows, and a quiet mind. That knowledge never died. It was copied by monks, taught in cathedral schools, and drawn into manuscripts that still survive today. So where did the flat earth nightmare come from? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a 19th century writer sitting by a fire, inventing a past that never existed. Washington Irving, the man who gave us the Headless Horseman, also gave us the myth of Columbus bravely defying flat earth fools. It was fiction. Pure, delicious, dangerous fiction. And we swallowed it whole. Now here is where the tension turns intimate. Consider what it means to believe a lie about the past. It is not just about maps or oceans. It is about control. When you make an entire era look stupid, you make yourself feel brilliant by comparison. That is the quiet seduction of the flat earth myth. It whispers to you, look how far we have come, look how enlightened we are. But the medieval mind was not waiting for Columbus to save them from the edge of the world. They already knew. They held globes in their hands, painted Christ ruling over round creation, and argued not about flatness but about size. Columbus himself got the size wrong. He thought the earth was much smaller than it truly is. Without the Americas accidentally sitting in his way, he and his crew would have starved in the middle of an ocean they never expected to cross. So the next time someone tells you that medieval sailors feared falling off the planet, smile gently and ask them who benefits from that story. The suspense does not end here. Because if they were not ignorant about the shape of the world, what else have we gotten wrong about them? What darker, stickier myths have clung to their skin, their bodies, their beds? That is where our journey turns next. And that question hangs in the air like wood smoke on a cold morning. If they understood the curve of the earth, then what else have we smeared across their memory? Let us speak now of something more intimate, more personal. The myth that medieval people never bathed. That they were crawling with filth, reeking of sweat and rot, afraid of water as if it were a curse whispered by witches. Close your eyes and imagine the accusation. You are standing in a crowded market in the year 1350. The air is thick with bread, leather, and the breath of livestock. Someone leans close and tells you that these people despised cleanliness. That they believed washing opened your pores to evil spirits. That they died young because they were drowning in their own grime. Now open your eyes, because none of that is true. And the real story is far more seductive. Medieval Europeans bathed. Often. Public bathhouses dotted every decent town. They were not merely functional. They were social havens where men and women soaked together, gossiped, negotiated business, and yes, sometimes indulged in pleasures that made the church frown. The water was warm. The steam rose. And the line between hygiene and desire blurred in the candlelight. Even peasants washed in rivers and barrels. Soap existed. Monks had strict schedules for scrubbing their bodies. Royalty commissioned perfumed baths with rosemary, mint, and sage, medieval aromatherapy before it became a luxury brand. So why does the myth of the filthy medieval peasant cling to us like a bad smell? Because later centuries wanted to feel superior. During the Renaissance and especially the 17th century, doctors decided that bathing opened the pores to dangerous air. Suddenly, people stopped washing. Your average 14th century baker was cleaner than a French courtier 100 years later. But the lie was already spreading. It is easier to believe that the past was disgusting than to admit that we are not so different. Now let the tension tighten. If they were not filthy, then what other intimate myths have we invented about their bodies, their beds, their breath? The next truth will touch something even more personal. Something you have seen in movies 100 times. And it will shatter like old glass. And shatter it does. Because the next myth is one you have seen with your own eyes. A knight in shining armor falls to the ground. He lands on his back with a heavy, hopeless clank. His arms flail. His legs kick at the air like an overturned beetle waiting for a boot. You have laughed at that image. Hollywood has sold it to you 100 times. The helpless tin can. The clumsy warrior who needs a crane to mount his horse. Now let me ask you something quieter. Something almost uncomfortable. What if that lie was designed to make you feel stronger than the past? What if the truth is that a knight in full plate armor was one of the most terrifyingly mobile things you could ever face? Sit with that for a moment. A full suit of battle armor weighed between 45 and 60 pounds. That sounds heavy until you realize that a modern firefighter carries more than that. A modern soldier carries more than that. The difference is that medieval armorers distributed every ounce across your entire body, shoulders, chest, legs, arms. It was not a prison. It was a second skeleton. A second skin. Surviving training manuals from the period show knights doing something that should make you reconsider everything you thought you knew. They show fully armored men wrestling, rolling, cartwheeling. Yes, cartwheels. They show fighters leaping onto horses without a single stair, vaulting from the ground as if the steel weighed nothing. Try that in your genes and tell me who is more restricted. So where did the turtle knight come from? There is something almost intimate about this deception. Part of the answer is tournament armor. In the 15th century, knights who competed in jousting wore extra plates, heavier and bulkier, designed to survive a lance strike at full gallop. That was not combat gear. That was sports equipment. The medieval equivalent of an NFL player's pads. You would not judge a sprinter by watching someone in a mascot costume. Another part of the answer is Victorian gentlemen. Wealthy men in the 1800s bought old suits of armor that were never meant for battle. Decorative pieces. Poorly fitted display items made of thicker steel. Then they put them on, wobbled around, and historians wrote down what they saw. A lie born from a costume party. The real knight moved like smoke and struck like thunder. And that truth leads us somewhere even more deceptive. Because if they were not clumsy in battle, then what else have we gotten wrong about their bodies? Their lifespan. The very number of years they expected to draw breath. That myth is waiting just ahead, and it is the cruelest one yet. And that myth is the cruelest one yet. Because it touches something every human being secretly fears. The number you have heard whispered in documentaries, repeated in classrooms, stamped onto the medieval mind like a curse. Life expectancy was 30 years. You imagine a peasant celebrating their 29th birthday with the desperate joy of someone who knows the clock is about to stop. You imagine children becoming adults at 12, marrying at 14, and dying before they ever see their own grandchildren crawl across a hearth. It is a haunting image. Seductive in its tragedy. And it is almost completely wrong. Let me pull you closer to the truth. That infamous number, 30, is an average. And averages are liars. They hide more than they reveal. In the Middle Ages, infant mortality was brutal. A third of all children, sometimes more, did not survive their first 5 years. They were taken by fever, by famine, by accidents that modern medicine waves away like dust. Those tiny deaths drag the average down. They pull the number into a grave before life has even begun. But here is the intimate secret that no one tells you. If you made it past childhood, if you survived the cruel lottery of those early years, your world changed. You were no longer a fragile thing. You were iron. Once you reached your teens, your odds of living into your 50s or even 60s were genuinely good. Provided you avoided war, plague, and the occasional dagger in a dark corridor. Medieval records are full of elderly people. Grumpy bishops who outlived 3 popes. Farmers with backs bent from decades of harvest. Grandmothers who gossiped by the fire while their great-grandchildren played in the mud. They complained about the youth in Latin. They ached with arthritis. They had teeth worn down to brown stumps. But they were alive. The idea that everyone keeled over at 30 comes from a misunderstanding that feels almost deliberately cruel. It makes the past seem like a foreign country where humans barely existed. But you are not so different from them. If you survive childhood, you too could expect to grow old. The difference is not the span of years. It is the texture of suffering along the way. So the next time someone tells you that medieval people were ancient at 30, ask them what the number really measures. It measures loss, not a limit. And that quiet truth brings us to the end of our journey tonight. 4 myths. 4 quiet corrections. The earth was round. Their bodies were clean. Their nights were deadly. And their lives were not as short as you were told. The Middle Ages were not stupid. They were just different. And now you know.